All right, this video is for Learning Target 5, starting on page 28. Go ahead and turn to page 28. So our learning target for this video is I can solve for y. Okay? In other words, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of equations and we're going to solve for y. So you guys are used to solving equations for x, but today we're going to solve for y. Okay? So the first thing is, what does solving for y actually mean? Well, when you solve for y, we are going to rewrite our equations in slope-intercept form here. So that means slope-intercept form, if you remember, we've been working on this for quite a while here, is y equals mx plus b. We are trying to get the y all by itself on one side of the equal sign and all the other pieces over to the other side. Okay, so we're going to look at a few examples here, a few different types of problems here. So our first one, notice it says rewrite each equation in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So our whole goal is to get this y by itself, and we're going to remove everything over to the, or we're going to undo everything so it appears on the other side. So you have to think SADMAP here, okay, because we're undoing. We want to keep the equation balanced by undoing what we do to one side, you do to the other. So we have y plus 5 equals 9x. I want to get this y by itself. So I'm going to remove each piece that's attached to it using SADMAP. So I want you to think here. I'm going to write SADMAP up here. SADMAP says to do subtraction and addition first. Okay, so I have a plus 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to minus 5 from both sides. So the plus 5 and a minus 5 zero out. The y drops down. And I end up with 9x minus 5. Okay, and I can't combine those two because they're not like terms. One has an x and the other one doesn't. And we're all done. We just solved for y. Notice y right here is all by itself. All the other pieces are on the other side. And it's in y equals mx plus b form. So we're done. Okay, let's look at the second one. We're going to solve for y, so we're going to undo this minus 9x here. We want to move it over to the other side here. So in order to undo minus 9x, we're going to move this entire piece over. I'm going to add 9x. The inverse of minus is plus, and I'm going to move this entire piece. So I'm going to say plus 9x to this side. Minus 9x and the plus 9x cancel each other out, so it's actually 0x. The y drops down. On this side, we end up with 12 plus 9x. And we can't combine those two because they're not like terms. So we just solved for y. Notice y is all by itself. The other side is 12 plus 9x. It's mx plus b. It's just backwards. Completely fine. So that is our final answer. Okay? Let's circle our final rewritten equation here so you know what you end up with. Third one. We're solving for this y. Looks like what's attached to it is a times 4. There's nothing else on this side that has subtraction or addition, so it looks like the only thing I have to do is undo this times 4 by dividing it by 4. Okay? Now when we divide, we have to divide everything else on the other side by 4. So I'm going to divide this 5x by 4 and divide this 8 by 4. Okay? It's just one of those rules. When you multiply or divide, you have to do every single piece. So what happens is 4 divided by 4 cancels out. The y drops down by itself, exactly what we were trying to do. Let's do the first piece here, 5x over 4. Just look at the fraction part, 5/4. We can't reduce that, so we're going to keep it as 5/4. Keep the x. Plus, second part, 8 divided by 4. Well, that reduces to a 2. And so, basically, we just rewrote this for y. The other side is 5/4 x plus 2. These two equations are equivalent. We just solved for y. That's all we did. And that is our rewritten equation for y. Y equals mx plus b. Okay, let's take a look at our next one here. So solve for y. So keep in mind, SADMAP here says we always want to, I'm going to drag this down here so we can keep referring to it. SADMAP says we want to subtract or add first. Okay, so my suggestion to you, my clue to you is anytime there's any numbers attached to y using multiplication or division, that's always going to be done last. You're always going to do subtraction and addition first. So let's undo this minus 4, move it to the other side by adding 4 to both sides. Okay, minus 4 and a plus 4 cancel each other out. The 6 times y drops down, and we're going to end up with 6x plus 4. They're not combined together because they're not like terms. Okay, we have one more thing to do to get this y by itself. Notice it's not by itself yet. We're going to undo the times 6 to the y by dividing by 6. So I'm going to divide every other piece by 6 here. And let's see what happens. 6 divided by 6 cancels out to be a 1, so the y drops down as 1y. 6 divided by 6 is also 1. We keep the x with that. And 4, 6, we can keep it as 4, 6, but 4, 6 is the same thing as reducing it to 2/3. So this 6y minus 4 equals 6x is equivalent to y equals 1x plus 2/3. It's just rewritten for y. We got the y all by itself. We undid all the other pieces to the other side. Okay? Let's try another one. We have 4y plus 4 equals 23 plus 6 plus 2y. Okay? So we have a couple of things happening here. So on the right side of this equal sign, we have some like terms we can actually put together. So let's put those two together because neither of them have variables. So 23 plus 6 is actually 29. I'm going to keep the plus 2y. And this side, I'm going to have 4y plus 4. Well, notice I have two y's. I have a y on this side, and I have, and I have another y on the other side. Okay, I'm going to move this back. So in other words, those are like terms, and let's try to bring them all over to one side. So let's take the smaller variable, the 2y, because the 4y is a little bigger, and let's undo this piece and bring it over to the other side. So if I have positive 2y's over here, and I want to zero them out, undo them, I'm going to minus 2y from them, which means I'm going to minus 2y from this side as well. So my two y's cancel each other out. There's no more y's on that side. The 29 drops down. This side I had 4 y's, but I'm taking 2 y's away because I took 2 y's away from the right side. So now I only have 2 y's left, 4 minus 2, and then I have a plus 4 still. Okay? So now our goal is to get this y by itself. So let's move this plus 4 and this times 2 over to the other side. Well, SADMAP says I want to undo the plus first, so I'm going to minus 4 from both sides. I'm going to end up with 2 times y that drops down. 29 minus 4 is 25. And last step here, let's divide each side by 2. Cancels out. Y then equals 25 divided by 2 is 12.5. So we just rewrote this equation that looks long and complicated, and in the end, the equivalent equation for y is y equals 12.5. That's all it is. Okay, it's just a matter of learning how to do the inverse operations. It's the same inverse operation SADMAP that you guys use to solve equations. We just are keeping the variable pieces. Okay? Let's take a look at the next one. So this one says x minus y equals 3. Okay? Now, this one, there's multiple ways to do this. I'm going to show you the easiest way. Okay? We have a minus y here. This is not a minus x. This is x minus y. One thing you could do is you can stop, chop, chop. But the easiest way you can deal with this is if this is a negative y right here, because it's a minus y, I'm going to add y to both sides here. Whoops. Okay, so if I'm minus y and a plus y, there's no more y's on this side, so I'm going to end up with just an x that drops down. And on this side, I have a 3 plus y. So now everything is positive. I have no more minuses or negatives here. Okay, but notice my y is not by itself. I still want to get this y by itself here. So in other words, I'm going to steal this yellow box here. I want this y by itself. So I still have a positive 3 on the right side that I need to move over to the left side so the y is by itself because we're solving for y. So I'm going to minus 3 and minus 3 from both sides to undo that positive 3. The y is going to drop down because it's already positive, and I'm going to end up with x minus 3. And we just solved for y. Y equals x minus 3. It's just written backwards, not a big deal. It doesn't always have to say y equals something. This is, or from left to right, this is just x minus 3 equals y. The main goal, trying to get the y all by itself. Okay, let's take a look at some more. Next one. This one is already y on one side. So you're probably thinking, well, it's already solved for y. But is this an mx plus b form? It's not. Okay, so we have to actually get rid of the parentheses, and hopefully you remember how do you get rid of parentheses if I have a number on the outside of the parentheses using multiplication. Remember, it's a distributive property. So I'm going to distribute this 5 to every piece inside using multiplication. So I'm going to end up with y stays on the left side. Distribute the 5 to the x, 5 times x, plus distribute the 5 to the 8, 5 times 8 is 40, and there you go, y equals mx plus b. It's already solved for y, but we just cleaned it up so it's in the form of y equals mx plus b. Okay, next one. We have y minus 4 equals 9 parentheses x plus 2. First thing we're going to do is we're going to simplify first. In other words, we're going to get rid of these parentheses by using distributive property again. So I'm going to distribute the 9 to the x, 9 times x. Distribute the 9 to the 2. 9 times 2 is 18. This side I still have a y minus 4. Keep in mind we're trying to get this y by itself. So we still have a minus 4 on this side to get rid of. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides here. And the minus 4 and the plus 4 cancel out. The y drops down. 9x drops down. I only added 4 to the 18 because they're like terms. I'm not going to add it to the 9x because those can't be combined. And 18 plus 4 is 22. And there's your y equals mx plus b. Just rewrote it. We're just solving for y here. Okay, next one. Similar kind of problem here. Let's distribute first, simplify here before I start moving things using inverse operations. So let's do this. Half to distribute to the x is half times x minus half times 2 is going to equal 1. Okay. And this side I still have a y minus 10. We're trying to get this y by itself. Everything is simplified already, so let's undo this minus 10 here. We're going to undo this by adding 10 to both sides. Now keep in mind this stop, chop, chop, that's actually a negative 1. The negative 10 and the plus 10 cancel out. The y drops down. The half x drops down. Negative 1 plus 10 is a 9. Plus 9. So there's your y equals mx plus b. Okay, notice I'm always simplifying first, and then I'm starting with subtraction or addition, and I always end up by dividing or multiplying last. Okay? All right, last 3 problems here. These are a little different. Okay, these aren't solving for y. So each one of these problems specifies what they want you to solve for. So these are formulas you should possibly recognize, or these are actual formulas of finding the area or volume or perimeter of something. So let's take a look at this first one here. It says area of a triangle is area equals base times height divided by 2. It wants you to solve for b here. So in other words, they want this b all by itself on one side of the equal sign, and every other piece moved over on the other side of the equal sign. Okay? So still thinking about SADMAP, we are going to do a subtraction addition first. Well, notice there's no plus or minus sign going on here, so we're going to skip that step. So now we're going to think division and multiplication. Well, let's get rid of this fraction part, this divide by 2. Well, we know the inverse of divide by 2 is times by 2. So I know the 2's are going to cancel out, and the b times h comes down because the 2's cancel out, and the left side we have 2 times a, which is nothing more than 2 times a. So we're going to write 2 times a. Okay? Now the b is still not by itself. There's still a times h attached to it. So to undo the times h, we're going to divide each side by h. Okay? The h's are going to cancel out to be 1. So in other words, the b drops down all by itself, exactly what we're trying to do here. And this side, we have 2 times a divided by h, which is, you can't do any more than 2 times a divided by h. You can't simplify it. So we're going to keep it as 2 times a divided by h. So final answer is just a hodgepodge of variables here. Okay, because we don't have numbers for the variables, so our answer is going to have variables in it. So we're going to have b equals 2 times a equals h. That's equivalent to our original equation. It's just now solved for the b. Okay, notice the b is all by itself now. Exactly our goal. Second one. This is the formula for perimeter of a rectangle. Perimeter equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Okay, it looks like it's asking us to, whoops, uh-oh, what did I do? There you go. It looks like it's asking us to solve for L. It wants us to get this L all by itself on one side, and it wants us to move all the other pieces to the other side. Okay, so again, referring to SADMAP, we're going to start with subtraction or addition. Well, I have a plus 2w here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo this plus 2w by subtracting 2w's from both sides. I'm going to move this entire piece over. So I'm going to end up with no more 2w's because I have a plus 2w and a minus 2w, which is 0 w's, so I don't have any more w's left. The 2l drops down. The left side I have p minus 2w. And I can't do anything more with that. Can't combine them. I don't know what the variables are, so they just keep it as p minus 2w. Okay? Now the L is almost by itself. It's still being attached by this times 2. So the last step I'm going to do here to undo this times 2 is I'm going to divide everything by 2 here. And let's see what it does here when I clean it up. The 2's cancel out. The L drops down by itself. Exactly our goal. And let's start with our first piece. There's an invisible 1 sitting in front of this p. I'm going to have a 1/2 with the p minus, well, I have 2 divided by 2, which is 1, and I still have a w. There it is. Doesn't look pretty, but this is the same. It's equivalent to our beginning original equation. It's just now rewritten, so L is by itself. It's rewritten for L instead of just p this time. All right, let's give this last one, the challenging one, a shot here. This is the formula for volume of a cone, and it wants us to solve for R. So it wants this R all by itself, this little R here. So we're going to undo all the other pieces here, okay? So let's take a look here. Let's defraction this and get rid of this divide by 3. This is pi times R squared times height divided by 3. I'm going to get rid of this divide by 3 by multiplying both sides by 3, so the 3's cancel out. So I'm going to end up with pi r squared times height. Pi times radius squared times height. And on the left side, I have 3 times a. Okay? Let's get rid of everything's multiplication here, so I know what I have left is just division here. So get this r by itself. We're going to leave the r piece for last here. I know there's a second power on it, but we're going to leave that part for last. I'm trying to move this here. Make this. Okay, well, that's a pain. So what we're going to do here is we're going to divide each side by pi. And let's just divide each side by pi times height. Let's do 2 steps in 1 step. That means the pi's cancel out and the heights cancel out. Okay? Which means the r squared drops down, because that's the only part that didn't cancel out with the pi and the h. And this side over here, we're left with exactly what we see. 3a over pi times h. 3 times a over pi times h. Last step. This r is not by itself. There's still a second power in it. How do you undo the second power of something? Well, the inverse operation is the square root of the entire thing. So a square root and a square, when they appear next to each other, they cancel each other out. So the r drops down by itself, and the left side is exactly how it appears. It's a big square root over 3a over pi h. And there's your final answer. Again, not the prettiest thing you've seen, but again, it's just learning how to do the inverse operations using variables, still using SADMAP here. Okay? Let's go ahead and complete our summary. Oops, these are already pulled out. So first summary here is, before you rewrite for y, you always want to make sure you're simplifying both sides. Okay, what that means is combine your like terms on both sides, use distributive property if you have to. Okay. Second, once you do that, then you can start thinking about SADMAP. Keep in mind, you're always doing subtraction addition first before you do division and multiplication. We're not going to have too many exponents in parentheses, so you can ignore that part of SADMAP. And your ultimate goal, your final answer should be in y equals mx plus b form. You're trying to get that y all by itself. All right, you've got your classwork starting at page 29. Give a few a practice, check back at your answers, make sure you're doing this correctly, and check in with me if you have any questions. All right, good luck.